Hi guys, Jamie Fluke here for Apex Racing Academy. This is our track guide for Long Beach for week 8 of the Sports Car Challenge by Falcon Tyre in the Mercedes-AMG GT4. As well as these track guides, we're also giving away our Mercedes-AMG GT4 data packs in its entirety for free this season. So that includes your qualifying and your race setups. It includes your reference lap files, so that's the B lap and O lap files. You get access to the replay file as well, and it also gives you access to our Discord server where we host a group coaching session on a Tuesday evening, hosted by myself. All you've got to do is sign up at apexracingac.com. The link is in the description to get the data pack for free for the season. In terms of the circuit this week, Long Beach is a unique and interesting challenge compared to everything else that we go to this season. But the Mercedes goes quite well. It rotates very well at low speed, and despite its not tremendous traction, it handles the bumps and the very bumpy nature of the circuit very well, and so it should be a competitive option this week. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Another reminder, guys, that you can get this season's Mercedes-AMG GT4 data pack for free this season over at apexracingac.com or by following the link in the description below. So into the track guide we go. We've got the long sweeper to head down towards turn 1, so just keep the car over to the right hand side and spot the reference points. And pause it right about here. 500 board on the right hand side is pretty good, but we've also got the white line that goes all the way across the circuit, and braking in this sort of area here will do quite nicely. We've got the pit lane over to the right hand side here. We cannot cross with more than half our car beyond the double blue lines here, but do try and brake in as much of a straight line as possible. And basically keeping the middle of the car over the red line, I think, is probably a good idea. Peak pressure is not super high around here because of the bumpy nature of the circuit, particularly under braking. So we have to just dial some of that peak pressure out so that we don't absolutely smash the front tires on the brakes on the way in. So down into second gear, at which point we'll turn into the corner, and a decision is to be made in terms of how much curb to take. In this car, we can take pretty much all of the red and white curbing. That's absolutely fine. The car will land pretty soft, and you can also get a bit of extra rotation. The car generally will understeer just a little bit through a corner like this. If we stay on the flat, yes, you keep in contact with the ground at all times, but you just lack a little bit of rotation, so that's why I prefer to go about it that way. Smoothly does it with the throttle pickup, and just make sure to get as close as you can to the wall on exit. In towards the fountain section. So just as we cross the yellow line here, and if you go about this in such a way where you're pointing towards the curb in the distance here, we can sort of straight line it a little bit, open up the angle, and then flick the car in. So down into second and then first gear, try and once again open up that angle, and then turn in nice and early and wrap the inside of the curbing as much as possible. If I just go in chase cam just to show that we are going as tight as we dare around the curbing here. Once there, slowly introduce your throttle, bearing in mind that we are in first gear, so just got to be really careful with it. And then up into second, just as we get to the wall here, which is technically turn 3, get as close as you dare to it on the way through. Bring the car over to the left hand side. Spot the change in the angle of the red line to help you out in terms of getting turned into turn 4. Small little dab of brake, flick the car in. Similar sort of curb usage as with turn 1. It's the same sort of profile of curb, so we can use more or less the same amount given that we're taking a similar amount of speed through the corner. Nice and early with the throttle. Once again, progressive with it. We're not too aggressive. Just nice and smooth. Feed it up and feed the rest of it in as the car wants to try and rotate. All the way out to the outside wall. And then turn 5 is quite tricky. We'll grab third and then we're going back down into second gear. So it's a little bit clunky, but keeping it in second through the entirety and keeping it third in the entirety both feel extra grim. So up and then back down the gear. As the darker grey part of the tarmac disappears here in favour of the lighter grey, that's when we want to get onto the brakes. And then slowly tip the car in. The front end is actually quite lively here, so just do be mindful of that. Again, not too firm on the brake pedal and making sure that we sort of come off the brake before we get to the wedge anti-cut curbs here. We can cut these quite extensively, but more than half the car over the innermost edge, I believe will give you a slowdown penalty, though with iRacing slowdown limits, they're never that clear, to be fair. It's helpful if I go chase cam here just to roll it through, just to sort of prove that we're all good through that first curb. The important thing is to pick up an early throttle initially and then just wait slightly to make sure that the car is settled and stable. It is super bumpy through here and then the track falls away. So we just need to be mindful of that. So really gentle with the throttle and then all the way out to the outside wall and grab third once the car is settled. So down into turns 6 and technically 7 is here as well. So braking just after the 300 board and just after sort of the smudge in the red line here. So between this sort of area and the 200 will work out quite nicely. Firm straight line braking, this is actually probably the hardest braking zone on the lap because the braking zone is fairly smooth. So we can be a bit more aggressive with the brake pedal. Down into second, nice early turn in. And then again, trying to get as close to the inside wall as we dare, picking up the throttle right on the apex here. Again, we need to be smooth with our throttle pickup here because the track is quite bumpy and sort of falls away as well on the way through. Spot the red line towards the exit of the corner, and that's about as wide as we want to go, just making sure that we stay within the vicinity of that. The car can get a little bit loose on the way out, so again, caution with the throttle and a bit of patience is required just to make sure that the car doesn't do anything too funky. Over to the left-hand side then to set up what is then turn 8 and spot the sort of manhole cover where your right front will cross over and the 200 board, braking certainly just before the 200 and just about when we come to the manhole cover there on your right. So braking a little bit in a straight line, down one gear into second, and then a gentle trail brake on the way in. We want the latest apex that we can kind of muster. But also we want to pick up an early throttle and trying to get as much rotation done as possible. Where the wall sticks out at its widest point is still where we want to apex, but the track sort of feels like it really tightens up on exit, especially with the barriers on the left-hand side. So just making sure that we get the car rotated early and then square the car off as quick as possible and then all the way out to the outside wall. From here, small breather before we get into the very difficult final sector. So we'll spot the 400 board and we'll spot this change in the track surface here in between the 500 and the 400 board and sort of braking in between those 2 points. Smoothly does it onto the brake pedal down into third gear and we'll eventually grab second as well. And slowly tip the car in. If we can get our right side wheels onto the flat and the left side wheels to stay on the flat, then the car is going to stay level and balanced throughout here. It is still bumpy on the way through, it's not quite level, but the car should take it quite nicely if we cross over the curbing once and then come out the other side of it without coming back over the top of it. So gentle with the brake pressure there, just to make sure that the car stays as high up on the front end as possible, that we're not pitching the nose down. And then slowly introduce your throttle. Smoothly does it all the way out towards the outside wall, at least with your left side wheels beyond the red line for sure. The penultimate corner here, so the lawn sweeper of turn 10, quite difficult to get this right, and it sort of depends on how you get through turn 9, but under the bridge we go, and as soon as we can sort of see the curbing on the left hand side, a small dab of brake and hold that, and then hold the inside line as tight as you can, trying to avoid at least the sort of thicker part of these wedged anti-cut curbs where possible. As soon as this first curb ends, then we can introduce our throttle, and from here it's trying to find a sweet spot in terms of the throttle percentage that it's going to allow maximum rotation without instability, whilst also then building as much momentum through here as possible. So a little bit of modulation is required, and then we'll tuck the nose back in, and then before the sort of curving straightens itself out in the sort of area here, we'll want to get onto the brakes then for the final corner. Gently does it, and then feed the car in first gear. It's probably handier if I go into chase cam just to sort of show where I'm trying to place the car. So maximum steering lock, nicely at apex, especially given the Mercedes. And we can take sort of two approaches here, either sort of almost staying off the curb entirely where it's just that little bit smoother, or taking all of the curb and get as tight to the wall as possible to maximize the rotation. In the Mercedes, I do prefer the traction rather than rotation, so that's what we're going to go for, just slightly wider line. Nice and smooth, and then once we see the wall, we can get back to full throttle, or make sure that we don't run into the wall. Then we can get back to full throttle, straighten the wheel out, and then bring the car over towards the right hand side to conclude a lap here at Long Beach. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to go over to apexracingac.com for your free Mercedes-AMG GT4 data pack for the rest of the season. For further questions and information, join our Discord server, which you can access with your subscription, and we host a group coaching session on a Tuesday evening, so make sure to check the details in the Mercedes-AMG GT4 car channel. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.